An aspiration decades in the making could now become a reality for Iraq's Kurdish population. On September 25th, Iraq's semi-autonomous Kurdish region is voting in a referendum on statehood. The vote will impact an area extending from Kirkuk, which is claimed by both Baghdad and Erbil, to Iraq's borders with Syria, Turkey, and Iran. Baghdad says the referendum is unconstitutional, and that if it goes ahead, it will leave Iraq's central government no choice but to use force.
To protect our Kurdish population and our Arab and Turkoman and other ethnic population of our own country. If they are threatened by using force outside the law, then we will intervene militarily.
Turkey, Syria, and Iran fear a referendum in northern Iraq will disrupt regional security. But despite resistance from both regional and international allies, the Kurdish regional government says it will go ahead with the referendum.
It's clear that this is not a decision by a person or a political party, 2 or 3. This is the decision of the Kurdish people.
The US is asking for a delay of the vote, pushing instead for more talks between Erbil and Baghdad. Iraq is a vital regional partner in the fight against Daesh, and the US fears conflict could jeopardize those operations. There are also concerns that any conflict resulting from a referendum could threaten Iraq's oil exports, which both Erbil and Baghdad rely on heavily for income. So as Iraq's Kurds press ahead, another question is coming into focus: whether the pursuit of self-determination can continue without becoming a nightmare. Basil Rehan, The Newsmakers.
Well, to discuss what's at stake, I'm joined now from the capital of the Kurdish regional government, Erbil, by Mahmoud Othman. He's a former member of the Iraqi parliament and also a former head of the Kurdistan Socialist Party. And in Baghdad, Ali Ad-Dabagh, he's a former spokesman for the Iraqi government. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Mahmoud Othman, this referendum, a lot of people think it's a bad idea. Tell me why you disagree.
Well, first of all, greetings to you and to my friend Ali Dabagh in Baghdad. Actually, this referendum came because the outstanding problems between Erbil and Baghdad were not solved since about 10 years or more than 10 years. Always discussions, no solution, no results. So that led to the referendum, and constitution was not applied as it should be. That's why this came. So now the solution is, if those problems are solved and Kurds are given a guarantee that this will be solved for them, that may affect as an alternative the situation and could be a good alternative to the Kurds.
So help me understand what the plan is. To have the referendum, to get a yes vote, and then use that as a negotiating tactic against Baghdad to say, well, maybe we don't want independence, but give us more autonomy. Is that tactical?
Well, anyway, I think it could be before, it could be after the referendum. If there is a guarantee or a promise that the problems are solved and the UN or an outside body could supervise this, or could be a third party. But if nothing happens before or after, then referendum will take place, and there may be problems also between Kurds and the Iraqi side, especially in the areas which are called the disputed areas.
Yeah.
So I hope things will be solved one way or another through dialogue.
Okay, you say supervising body, but who are you going to trust as a supervising body? Because let's take Baghdad and put it aside. Put the Iraqi central government aside. You have Turkey, Iran, the United States, the UN Secretary General, all of them coming out and saying this referendum is a bad idea. It shouldn't happen. So who are you going to trust as a supervisor if everybody is on the other side when it comes to this issue, Mr. Othman?
Well, I think UN could be a supervisor, And America and Iran, these two countries have a lot of interest in Iraq, and they have an influence in Iraq also. They could help, of course.
Okay, Ali Dabagh, if they want to go, why don't you let them go?
Thank you very much. A greeting for my colleague, Mr. Mahmoud. About the constitution, I think the autonomous regional Kurdistan, they took the full power since 2003. They had all the powers in Baghdad, and Baghdad federal government, they have even no power to employ one policeman in the Kurdistan. So all the powers has been getting, there is nothing to complain about the power and the implementation of the constitution. First of all, the Kurds, they had choose to be part, they had vote on the referendum in 2005 on the Iraqi constitution, which make Iraq as a federal government. They choose to be part of this country, which doesn't allow one side, whether it is a region or a governorate, to vote for independence or to be an independence. So it is unconstitutional that they will do. Plus that the issue is of the border. They are talking about the Kirkuk and beyond Kirkuk even, and this is the biggest problem which is going to be created instability. It's going to disrupt the stability of the Kurdistan, which proportionally it is much better than what we had in Baghdad or the other places. So they cannot swallow that, taking the full Kirkuk, which is part of it, Arab and Turkmen and of course Kurd. So in the constitution, Kirkuk is cosmopolitan, is not part of the Kurdistan. So they are imposing now to have a vote for the referendum in Kirkuk and a part of the Diyala and part of side of the Mosul.
Certainly, and these are disputed.
Again, this is going to be create a bigger
Certainly,
problem.
These are disputed border provinces, which a lot of people who actually support the referendum felt shouldn't have been included in the referendum. But I don't want to get into that for the moment. But it's well understood that both of you have mentioned the disputed provinces. Let me ask you, Mr. Dabagh, when Barzani says we refuse to be their servants, do you think he's just making it up? Or maybe he represents a certain feeling amongst many Kurds in northern Iraq as if they don't have full autonomy and full rights. That's why they want their own country.
Well, my friend, the time gone for each, not to the Kurd, even any Iraqi to be as a servant. Never. All of us are in one country and all equal, and the constitution make us all equal. There is no, you could see that Kurdistan, in the constitution wise, they have many powers. They should be to the federal government. Like, for example, they are exporting oil. They are not only exporting, they are smuggling oil to Iran and to other places. And this is, again, it's unconstitutional. But again, Iraq didn't, Baghdad government in all the time, they didn't take any measure, a force measure in order to stop that. So when we talk about the constitution and the implementation of the constitution, right, we do agree. There is a many problems and difficulties due to the challenges in Iraq. But again, it is that challenges didn't allow that to make. We don't deny the dream of the Kurd to have their a state. But again, imposing this way of independence on Iraq, on a country in this way, in this time, I think it is.
But Mr. Dabagh, you say we don't deny. I'm sorry, but you say we don't deny. You're basically saying you have a right, but now is not the time. However, when I look at what's happened recently, the Iraq Supreme Court ordering the suspension of the referendum, right? So they're told, listen, this is completely unconstitutional, this is completely illegal. The Iraqi parliament voting to sack the governor of Kirkuk because he wants to go ahead with the referendum. When Haider al-Abadi comes out, and these are his words, not mine, he says, we will be taking all measures. We won't allow for Iraq to be divided. We will be willing to use force if necessary. This is very, very tough talk, which suggests maybe to people who are on the fence in northern Iraq, if this referendum goes ahead, maybe if they were on the fence, maybe they'll end up voting for independence because they see Baghdad as being so heavy-handed when it comes to its response.
Well, the government of Baghdad, constitutionally, they have to set the peace in many places. If the referendum create instability, for example, let us take Kirkuk, which the people refuse, the non-Kurd people, they refuse the referendum. And if it comes as like a strife in Kirkuk, of course the government of Baghdad have to interfere and to stop any sort of the instability. This is part of their constitutional order. They have to. I'm not talking about the dream. Nobody against the dream of the Kurd, but again, there is something which the Kurds had agreed to be part of this country, of Iraq federal country, and they choose to be. I just want to remind you, in 2005, they had a similar referendum, and it was 98%. They said that we do need to not to be part of Iraq. But even though the Kurds choose to vote for the constitution and to be part of the Iraq federal country, now they choose lonely. From one side step, they choose to be not part, and it is not up to them to do.
Let me take a point that you made. Let me take a point that you made and pose it to Mahmoud Othman. What about the Sunni Arabs, the Turkmen, the Christian Arabs who are in a place like Kirkuk, who want to be a part of the broader umbrella of Iraq? They don't want to be in a Kurdish country. What about their futures? Does it not matter because they're not the majority?
Well, listen, first of all, this referendum is a free thing. I mean, nobody is forced to vote. They are free to vote or not to vote. When the vote is made, then you have this, and then there will be negotiation with the Iraqi government. Kurds always say that they will do nothing without agreement with Baghdad, and there will be no violence at all as far as the Kurds are concerned. So there is nothing wrong with taking the opinion of a people. They tried to take it 2004, and then they said no. 2005, they said no. 2009, they said no. Then when they should take it? That's why I think the reactions, which are heavy-handed, they are not justifiable, really. I mean, why in 2 days, a decision from the court, a decision from parliament, a decision from Ibadi, from everybody outside, as if we had committed a very big crime. I think there's nothing wrong with taking the opinion of your people to see what do they want, and people will be free to vote or not to vote, and then go into serious negotiation with Iraq, with outside country, with neighboring countries, to decide on something about the Kurdish ambitions.
Okay. Mr. Dabagh, you want to come in?
Can I comment on this?
Yes, sure.
Yes. In the constitution, the referendum is being specified clearly for the governorate, which is not part of the region. For 1 to 3 governorate, they could vote. It is being defined in the constitution what is the referendum. When anyone wants to make any referendum in any type or any sort, it is not up to him. All right, it is free, but it is unconstitutional that to take such a step by one side, like for Basra, they choose to make a referendum by their own without following the steps which is being defined in the constitution. This is the objection. We said it is unconstitutional because you didn't follow Mr. Uthman. Masoud Barzani didn't follow the steps which is defined in the constitution for this referendum.
Let me ask one final question to Mahmoud Othman here. I want to talk about the elephant in the room, Daesh, because this is at the genesis of the fears not only of the Iraqi government but many of the other countries. They feel you have this apocalyptic death cult that emerged in the region. It took over almost a third of your country at a point in time. Finally, the momentum is against them. They're on the run. This group of fighters are on the run. Their capital is being dismantled. And just at a time when not just the Iraqis, but the entire international community is getting close to defeating Daesh, you guys want to destabilize everything else, and you want to have a referendum which might give Daesh some breathing space and might give them an opportunity to get back into the vacuum again. Isn't that a fair fear from all these different parties, Mr. Uthman?
Well, you see, we understand the fear of other parties, but Kurds have confirmed that their fight against Daesh will continue. Nothing will be delayed because of a referendum which will take only 1 day, not more. This is one. Secondly, the constitution which Mr. Dabbagh talks about has not been implemented in Iraq. Sunnis are complaining, Kurds are complaining, others are complaining. That's why we are bound together by the constitution, but it's not implemented as it should be. That's why each side feels free to go towards its ambitions as long as the constitution is not implemented. If the constitution is implemented, then nobody will have any complaint. That's why I think there should be serious negotiations between Baghdad and Erbil with all other components of Iraq to discuss everything, every point of view, and if there is a possibility that a third party will supervise it, I think then maybe they will reach a solution.
Okay, well, they're running out of time.
If you say something and then...
Certainly, they are running out of time, and we are running out of time. If there is going to be an agreement before this happens, they've only got a week. They've got less than a week, so they're running out of time. We'll be following this closely as to whether the referendum happens, and if it does, what the permutations will be. For the moment, I've got to thank both of you gentlemen. We would love to have you back on the program, Mahmoud Uthman and Ali Dabbagh. I thank you both for joining us. Well, aside from the Kurds, one of the other major ethnic groups in northern Iraq is the Turkmen. For their perspective on the referendum, I'm joined now from London by Sundus Abbas. She's the president of the Iraqi Turkmen platform in Europe. Thanks so much for joining us, Ms. Abbas. First, off the bat, let me ask you what you thought of the discussion with the two gentlemen just before you. Anything stand out for you?
Well, as a referendum, you know, they talked about lots of issues in here, and some of them is just like they emphasizing one of the Constitution articles which haven't been implemented. Yes, that's true. It haven't been implemented, so as lots of articles in the Constitution. And I don't think it's a time and the right time to emphasize this point, and it doesn't justify the action by taking a referendum forward.
Let me ask you about what Masoud Barzani had said with regards to the fears that other ethnic minorities will be persecuted, particularly in a place like Kirkuk. He said, we don't say that Kirkuk only belongs to Kurds. Kirkuk should be a symbol of coexistence for all ethnicities. Why don't you believe him?
Well, why don't they agree that to make it as a special state for Kirkuk itself? Why they wanted to be part of Kurdistan? For the recent or for the last years, we didn't have the dynamic of trust between Turkmen and Kurds. Let us undermine that, not undermine what's happening in Kirkuk. Since 2003, all the Turkmen have been marginalized from the other positions to run the country, if it's like economically, a city, if it's like economically or in security-wise. And a part of that, the city itself has faced a huge demographical change since 2003 until today. We've seen the Kirkuk size have been doubled, and even the residents in the Kirkuk itself have been doubled as well, just from the Kurdish side. So when Dr. Uthman, he's mentioning now, nobody has to be afraid of voting if everybody has the right to vote freely. Yes, of course, because they guaranteed the vote is going to be yes, because they increase the size of Kurds in here, and this is the last steps to have a referendum and to get yes out of it.
Less than a week to go. They have been, those who are pushing for the referendum, they've been smothered by condemnation from Baghdad and from the international community. We mentioned it when I chatted to the other two gentlemen. Not only the United States, not only Turkey, Iran, even the UN Secretary General. Does all of that encourage you?
Well, I think Kurds, they are very good in you know, political blackmail, and they've done it before. And I think this is one of the cards they are using to blackmail the central government. Let us not forget that there is two elements involved in this. One of them is the Kurdish, the government itself, they have their own issue. One of them, the president himself, is have run out his term, and the parliament haven't been held for 2 years, and they have their own financial problem. So to just drive away the size from all this internal problem to the referendum, this is one of the reasons. And the second reason is the weak central government in Baghdad, especially with the terrorist group having lots of parts of Iraq, and the recent defeat of the ISIS group. They made them to think that this is the right time. If we haven't done it now, it won't happen later on when they get rid of the ISIS group, and it will be stronger.
Okay, Sundus Abbas, it's been good to get the Turkmen perspective. Thank you very much for joining us from London.
Thank you.